Today is Thursday, October the 23rd. We just went through week 3 of our From Now to Next campaign. We'll be wrapping it up this weekend with a call to action that we really would love for you to be here for, as God is moving our church from this season of now to what is next. And I loved this last weekend. You talked about our history. You talked about pulled in stories and thoughts about what God has been doing since 1885. And that we are just in a moment, a pivotal moment, just joining in with the history of people who've gone before us.
Yeah, it's a rich history, and so because you were there, and hopefully you were there as well, or able to watch online too. I read through some stories from our history of our church, places and people and names, and I'll be honest, I didn't tell you all this, but I did not edit anything. It was all as it was written back then, but I didn't read all of it. Right, there was more, just name after name after name after name of people that have been a part of the history of our church that have let their faith pave the way to get all the way from then to now. Right?
Yeah, and I don't even know all those names, but I know quite a few of those names, and I got blessed and to be able to meet some of them. You grew up here, so you met some of them as well, and it's just really cool to think about spiritually walking shoulder to shoulder with those people. I mean, they're not physically here anymore. This last week, and you talked about how we work shoulder to shoulder, and I think about really this legacy principle that I get to come alongside you in the work that you're doing, and when you pass away and get to go to heaven, then I bring someone alongside me, and and they weren't necessarily shoulder to shoulder with you, but because we were shoulder to shoulder together, we move forward.
Yeah, so I love it. In Hebrews 12, it talks about running the race with perseverance. It says we're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, and I love in my mind just to think those are people that have gone before us, right? That are maybe you still see, maybe some you can't still see. They went generations ahead, but they're cheering us on. They're cheering us on toward the finish line. And those are people that helped to build our church right here, right? Yeah. In our lives. I saw a meme a while back. Maybe you've seen the same thing. It's or not a meme really, even just a thing on social media about a guy who's been. It says he's been collecting photographs of people who hit walk-off home runs in baseball games.
I've never seen this. Nope.
It's actually cool. And the photo I've seen the most often, because I've seen it several times, it's of a guy, a professional baseball player. He's hit a walk-off home run in a big game at the end of the game to win the game for his team. And as he rounds third base, his arms are up and he's running home here. And it's from behind him, and you see past him at home plate, his team is there. They're jumping, they're cheering, they're welcoming him home to home plate right there. And he said, this guy said he's been collecting these pictures because in his mind, that moment is the closest we know as to what it'll be when we're crossing the finish line to heaven. That's our great cloud of witnesses that's all there. And it's a beautiful thing. So
it is.
It's really cool. Yeah.
That's so great to think about. Since you've brought it up, and we're talking about it a little bit, you said this weekend we work shoulder to shoulder, and you got to use the analogy of all these families in the book of Nehemiah who work shoulder to shoulder, part by part, bit by bit, to rebuild the walls together. So a question I have is, what's the difference between simply just working near someone and truly working with someone?
Well, we work near people all day, right? I mean, wherever you go, you work. If you're in school, you work near somebody at another desk. If you're at a job, you work near somebody at the next office, on the job site, the next machine. If you're at home, you work near somebody at your house or in the store, wherever you're at. But you don't know them. Right, there's no relationship. Maybe a casual one, an acquaintance thing, but they're just a classmate, a coworker, a fellow shopper. You don't have a relationship there. But when you work with someone, right, then you build this camaraderie, right? You build it. So there's this TV show, The Office, but you've probably seen The Office, right? I'm gonna be honest. It's not the best show. Morally, they're all over the place. But one thing I love in the show is that their office place really becomes family, almost against some of their wishes. Right? It becomes a family right there. I love that. They work with people together. I was actually just talking to one of our staff members this morning, not you, but another one, just about life, and said, "Hey, how can I be a blessing?" I said, "I want to make sure that as we're going forward here, that we're working with each other, almost as family, building relationships, not just co-workers in the same organization, right?
Yeah.
Because we're only more than that. There's a difference there. It's almost intangible, but it's real.
Yeah. I think about, so one of my favorite topics is to study is history. I love history, and I was thinking about, there's a story from history. I can't remember exactly which which king or emperor it was, but there's a story from history where he had all this money. He was building a canal, and he just told people to start here and start here, meet in the middle. And when the countries came, they were like 15 miles apart because no one actually took the time to make sure where they were digging was in a straight line towards each other. But they had the same goal in mind. They had the same plan in mind. We're going to meet in the middle. And then nothing actually happened, and it was actually they had to do a lot of fixing of things, and he was mocked. I don't remember, again, which one it was. But then it reminded me, as you were talking, of a different story of just the Romans. When they built aqueducts and stuff, they went through mountains, and they were like inches off when they did those things because they were working from the same map. They were working with the same contractor, and they would have teams going back and forth, and they may not have been next to each other, but they were constantly communicating to make sure they were right on point. And modern architects talk about all the time, and that they can't believe the precision of people who didn't have the tools we have nowadays. And it's just a powerful representation of what happens when you have a plan that you commit to together, but there's constant communication about how to make that plan come together. So that's what I think about when I think shoulder to shoulder versus just working around or working near those two stories.
Yeah, good stuff.
And so when we talk about around here, then running shoulder to shoulder or working with people, we want to make sure that we're ending in the same place. And around here, we talk about how we begin and end with Jesus, and we want to make sure we're running in the same direction, building towards the same things, and working shoulder to shoulder towards those goals. The last thing I want to wrestle through with is you talked a lot about how at some point it's my part. It's not just our part, because you said this on Sunday, and it's so beautiful, that if it's everyone's, then no one takes care of it.
Yep.
But if it's mine, then I feel personal responsibility for it. And so my faith, my sacrifice, my responsibility, and how do I partner along with this mission, with this vision? So why is it tempting to assume someone else is taking care of it in my life? Like, because if it is really my responsibility, then I need to do it. But it's tempting to say someone else will do it.
I think there's a cultural thing because we're in our American culture. Most of us are Americans here, right? In our American culture, we function from a position or a place of, this is my little spot right here, and I don't take ownership for other things, right? Other cultures, Eastern cultures, they don't do that. They function communally with stuff. And so what happens in my neighbor's yard, I have responsibility to make sure it's good, right? What happens with my neighbor's family, I have a responsibility to them relationally. They function more in extended family and less in nuclear family only. And so our culture is just different in that, right? And I think it's tempting because sometimes we can get so overwhelmed because we live in a world where everything's going crazy all the time. We get so overwhelmed, and it's a lot easier for me to sit down on my couch at night and turn on Netflix, and that's your problem. It'll be whatever. Or I get home and I think, man, that didn't happen. Well, it's raining, it's cold, it's dark. Somebody else will take care of that. And so I just stay in my own little carved out niche right here and let someone else do all things. And I think culturally, Jesus's culture, first century, it was much more like the Eastern ones, less like us and more like them. And so we do better to function that way, right? That's why we want to make sure that when we think about this vision, this from now to next project, we're talking about spiritual things, about spiritual health of people. The spiritual health of my neighbors is my responsibility.
Yeah.
The spiritual health of my coworkers is my responsibility, right? I can't put it off on a church, on a pastor, on a thing. It's my responsibility to do.
I think it's also tempting because you already said it, like we run so fast in America. We run so quickly in our Western world from thing to thing to thing that we don't want to add things onto us. So it's easier for me to say someone else will handle it until something goes well and I want my name on it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, so I want you to take care of it, and so you do all the work. And we do this with group projects and things like this all the time. I'll do my little portion of it, throw it in there, but you might do 90% of the work, and I'll come around and say, didn't we do a good job? Because I want all the glory for 5% of the work. But really, in God's kingdom, what it looks like is all of us jumping in to 100% of the work.
Yeah. There's an old thing, and I don't know who said it first. I've heard it before. Living in kind of church world and church leader world, the old saying that in a church, 20% of the people do 80% of the work and do all that, while 80% of the people do none of the work and sit around and, man, that's not how the kingdom works, guys. In the family of God, if you are part of the family of God, and if you surrender to Jesus, then you are part of the body of Christ. The hands need the feet, and the feet need the ears need the nose needs the elbows. We all interact together.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we have a dysfunctional body, right? If you're in the body of Christ, if you're surrendered to Jesus, then you are part of what happens. You have personal responsibility in all these things, and we have to remember that every time we think of anything. In a godly church, 100% of the people do 100% of the work.
Yes.
That's how it ought to be. So if you're part of the church, it's your responsibility.
So it's time to jump in. It's time to take ownership and time to go after the things God's called us to do and be obedient to Him. Church, until we see each other again, you are sent. Have a great day.